Healing doesn't mean the damage never existed. It means the damage no longer controls your life. Akshay Dubey. Welcome to Casa de Confidence, a podcast for you. You'll hear some incredible women
and some awesome, cool dudes
going confidently in the direction of their dreams and living in the purpose of their heart.
You're our host,
Julie DeLucca-Collins, and you are our sidekick. # handsome hot husband.
That again.
And the producer of the show.
That I am.
I am an author, speaker, coach, dreamer, and most of all,
we help people go in the direction of their dreams
and support them on their purpose. So pull up a chair,
grab a drink,
and make yourself at home, because our casa
is your casa. Hey there, Confidence fam. Welcome back to Casa de Confidence, where we mix business with brain science and throw in a little banter and relationship realness for good measure.
That's fancy.
You like that?
It is.
Tried to do my best announcer voice. Maybe.
Yeah, look at you.
I can announcer voice. Radio
I was going to say
right?
I can pimp you out. That's not good.
I should have gone a little deeper.
I can lend you out for your announcing skills.
Well, why don't you tell new listeners who you are?
Well, I'm Dan Collins' wife, the announcer guy. Julie DeLucca-Collins.
Julie, are you a book nerd?
I am a book nerd, Daniel Collins.
Yes, you are. Another book came today.
Listen.
And you bought 2 books that you already own.
Well, I'm going to give them away.
Right. So.
Yes. I've been giving books away lately because, listen, I'm just passing it on. I'm reading some incredible things. I got this book from Nate Hembrick, who I was with him and his partner on their podcast. And so Bronson Hill, who is the CEO of Bronson Equity, they hosted me on their podcast. And I just had such a fun time with these 2 dudes. Cool dudes indeed. And here we are. Nate sent me his book, The 18 Laws of Leverage, which is very, very good.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all you got to say. Cool.
That's awesome.
Oh.
I mean, it's great having all these books and absorbing that knowledge and seeing people's creativity in the way they write their books. That's incredible.
Maybe you ought to write a book, Daniel.
Maybe I ought to. Maybe you'll see my creativity come out.
There you go. What would you write a book about?
Call it Harness Racing and Aerospace. Oh, that's not bad.
Who would be your ideal listener?
It kind of book. What's that? What are those things? Bookends. Yeah, it kind of bookends my life thus far.
Oh, okay. I get it. I get it. Where you're going. So it'd be like a memoir.
I grew up in a family. We were involved in harness racing when I was a young lad, and now I break stuff for a living in an aerospace company.
That's right. That's right. You keep us safe.
I try my best.
You do try your best.
So, Julie.
Yes, Daniel.
Today's episode is packed.
And it is.
Such a great interview. For everyone listening, Julie sat down with an incredibly wise and refreshingly real Dr. Abena Berry. She's a psychologist, a speaker, and author of Bold, Black, and Becoming. And let me just say,
well, she blew me away. She blew our minds with this episode. And in the best possible way, really. And if you've ever battled like I do, and I know that I close my eyes and I think of the many women who have said this to me. We battle these intrusive thoughts and we wrestle that imposter syndrome that says, oh, who am I to be standing here? Or, oh, who are they talking about when you introduce that person? Or worse yet, we are sitting in a gold mine of gifts and we don't think we are enough to bring those gifts to the world. So I can't wait for people to hear this conversation.
And Dr. Berry, she breaks it all down, why your brain behaves the way it does, how trauma sneaks into our patterns, and how to stop fighting yourself and start managing your mind. Most importantly, with kindness and clarity. So yeah, I could tell you think a lot, because when you come to bed,
yes,
that's when your brain turns on even more. It's like a bright little beacon over there on the other side of the bed going wow, 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 wow. It's like a power source.
I've decided that I'm going to read when I come to bed.
Yeah, I noticed you've been doing that.
Well, I mostly read in the mornings, but when I come to bed at night, I don't usually come prepared to read. Oh, my mom got me a Kindle. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, she got me a Kindle.
When did she get you a Kindle?
When I was looking at it, and she's like, well, why don't you get it for your birthday? And I said, okay.
Oh, that's sweet. Your birthday was 2 months ago.
Well, you know.
All
She might have confused me with my sister's birthday. That's in June.
Well, happy birthday, June. Anyway, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yes, Daniel.
We went someplace we haven't been in a long time.
Yeah. Oh, I felt like home.
Yeah.
I felt like home.
We went to 180 Church in
180 Life Church.
Yeah, 180 Life Church in West Hartford, Connecticut, formerly
Calvary.
Yeah.
Fellowship.
And we went there because we wanted to see Pastor Bill Lamori. So Bill, some of you may know of Bill because he was on the show.
That's right.
And
he was on the show about 14 episodes ago.
And his book was coming out at the time, and it's been out. It's an incredible book. I've read it at least twice.
Yeah.
How many times have you read it?
Well, let's see. I read it first when he sent me the advance copy so I can give him some feedback. And then I read it again right before we had his book launch. And now I bought 2 more copies. So in addition to the other copy we own. So I may take a peruse in there.
His book is The Rest of the Man's Show, and you can find that on Amazon. And he was on Casa de Confidence, episode 302. If you want to go back and check that out, you can see what Bill's all about.
It sure is.
Yeah, so it was great seeing him today.
And the girls, he brought.
Oh my God, everyone's so grown up now.
Oh my God, they're so grown up. I was thinking Emily Lamori, the oldest, is 21, possibly.
Wow. 21, something like that. Yeah. She was a year old when they started the church in Connecticut.
And, oh my goodness, beautiful ladies, young ladies, and we were fortunate to, spend time with them. But also, we've seen them grow up when we used to teach in the middle school ministry. That was so long ago. I don't think I could do that these days, Daniel.
There's different stages and things and milestones in life that make you feel old. That's one of them.
That's one of them, indeed.
Oh.
Life does not stand still for anyone, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen to me. This episode with Dr. Berry, I found her on TikTok, right?
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. And I just...
Shock.
I just love her content, and she's the real deal. She blends psychology and emotional self-regulation to help you really become whole, just in the same way that Bill talks about becoming whole through faith also. And I love how we have all these different perspectives that kind of give us little different pieces of the puzzle so that we can become that person who we desire to be, but sometimes are not sure how to get there. So with the conversations and the things that we learn together here, I am hoping that someone can say, I've always had a dream. I always wanted to do fill in the blank. And now I think I'm going to try. And I think I can take the first step, and we can cheer them on. That honestly.
You can cheer them on. You got to remember that you're never too broken to grow.
No, you're not.
I mean,
that's
important to know. And I know that's something you work with women in midlife that are going through changes, and people need to understand that it doesn't matter what stage in life you are. It's never too bad, never too late to grow more as a human, as a person, as a parent, as a whatever you are, or whatever you're doing. And it's never too late to shift.
It's never too late to shift. And by the way, hey, I just want to go back, and I love going to church with you and hearing you sing on my ear.
Aww.
You know, you always sound so good.
Well, you know, when you got the talents I have, you got to share them.
Wow. Now we're getting off.
I'm kidding. I think you're just in love with me, so my voice sounds good.
I am in love with you. And so, I must love you some days because, dude, your shoes, I trip on them a lot.
That's true. That's true. You do trip on my shoes. Well, I got big feet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Hey, Julie.
Yes, Daniel.
We were speaking about growth.
Yes.
Now, next week,
mm-hmm.
you're rolling a solo show with a masterclass style episode on something a lot of us need to talk about. Why don't you tell people about it?
Really? What if I want to keep it a surprise? But I'll talk about it
I think
anyway.
you should tell people so they know to come.
Okay. So I'm talking about quiet leadership and confidence, because I think that there's a misconception when it comes to confidence, and everybody thinks that they have to be in their power pose and only in your power pose and you're loud. That makes you confident, but it really isn't. So we're going to unpack that a little bit, because there is beauty in the quiet.
Beauty in the quiet. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to throw on that colorful cape to show that you're confident.
Correct.
You know, there's something about quiet confidence that
just does it. It's you know, when I taught a class.
I'm at a loss for words because I'm kind of in awe of where we're going here.
Oh, okay.
And it's, you know, it's that person. There's nothing wrong about being out there and out and proud and confident and but there's also something about that quiet, peaceful confidence to where you know you can bring that confidence to other people and show them that they don't have to. They don't have to think that they're not a confident person, because confidence isn't something that the majority of people in the world are born with.
No.
It's something that's learned.
It's something that we learn. And by the way, this episode is specifically for the person who may be an introvert or a deep thinker, or just tired of thinking, okay, fake it till you make it culture, because there's no such thing as faking it. There is learning in building the efficacy, building the evidence. Oh, evidence, efficacy. Look at me coming up with these words. I must be reading a lot.
I don't like fake it till you make it. It's like do it. It's just, you're going to do it until you master it.
Oh, look at you, Dan.
And that's
that could
the
be
thing.
The quote for the year now.
Fake it till you make it. It sounds
fake.
It's a little dirty, right? But it's practice.
Practice, indeed. And it makes, not perfect, but it makes confidence.
Yeah. So I'd like to say, if you're listening now, give us a follow, subscribe. And you know what you should do right now, actually, more important than that, following and subscribing, even though we love that. And we love reviews. It's always special hearing nice things. Kind of makes your day.
It does. It does.
It does make your day. And but right now,
yes, hon.
Unless you're driving a car, you should probably grab a notebook, because today's interview with Dr. Berry is a special one.
Yeah. And I can't wait to have her again. And you know, I am working on having some what do you call these? Like 4-part episodes to topics that are very juicy.
This is one of those episodes. It's a listen twice, apply for life type of episode.
Oh my God. Look at you bringing down the thing. Oh my God. See, going to church made you really witty and wise, and love it.
So, well, Julie, we should let everyone enjoy this episode and again, write it down.
And by the way, If
Yes.
you don't know how to launch or grow your podcast, and if you have a podcast and you're not getting clients from it, hey, hit us up. We are happy to always talk and do a discovery call, and we can give you some feedback. It's not a coaching call, but it is a time for you to discover some new things that may help you grow your podcast, grow your authority, get clients, and more importantly, make an impact in the world.
All right. So enjoy this episode with Dr. Abena Berry and my Julie DeLucca-Collins. I guess she's yours too.
Welcome back to another episode of Casa de Confidence. I'm your host, and you know my name, Julie DeLucca-Collins. And today I am bringing someone that the conversation promises to be really in depth, because not only is she someone that aligns with my values, but she's doing a lot of work, a lot of really good work. She's done it on herself, but she's a psychologist, a therapist, a human advocate, an ally, and really her experience and expertise is something that we're all going to learn from. So let's tune in and welcome Dr. Abena Berry. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Julie. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, it's been a long time coming, but I'm super excited that we're able to be together and really bring you to the show, because I think that
Yes.
your work is the type of work that when I was going through some personal development and in my early career, I wish I really would have known some of the things that you share in what you do. But tell me a little bit about how you help individuals begin a wellness journey.
Yeah. So a lot of it is I definitely make sure that I take an approach with all of my clients, whether it be with therapy or life coaching or anything else, but I want to take that approach of getting to truly know
Mhm.
them as an individual. And what I've come to find along this journey of doing this work as a psychologist and as a therapist is that a lot of times people really don't know a lot about who they truly are, because so many people, due to trauma during their upbringing,
Yeah.
they're really stripped of their individuality.
Mhm.
And so a lot of it is helping people find their way back. And so I create a safe space where I truly listen to them. I explore with them where some of their ideas and beliefs about themselves come from, so they can figure out whether or not it's something that's truly organic to who they are versus something they were conditioned to believe they should be in terms
Mhm.
of likes or dislikes and things like that, to get them back in touch with their authentic selves so they can live their happiest
Yeah,
life.
this is so good. There is a quote that I read on your website, and I'm going to quote
Hmm.
you to you.
Yeah.
This really, yeah, summarizes again what you're saying. You say that we cannot become less human. Our job is to embrace our humanity and seek understanding from it so that we can become great managers of self. And I love
Yes.
that you use the word managers, because as I've started a personal development journey, and it's always going to be a journey, there's no place that I'm going to land at and have arrived, right? But I
Hmm.
had to learn to be able to, one, bring awareness to what I was thinking, some of the programming that has kind of been ingrained that doesn't serve me, that is not my fault, that is there, is just some of the
Right.
generational stuff, and then the internal family systems. And I had to learn to manage myself. And even to this day,
Hmm.
right? I'm in charge of me. I manage myself, manage my brain, manage the choices and the intentionality that you have. Why is it so difficult for people? And you may not necessarily have an answer, but I've always wondered this. Why is it so difficult for people to understand that it's not the world, right? But it's
Yeah.
us who has the power to really be able to do the internal work so
Hmm.
that we can become the person that we are meant to be, or the person who we want to become, rather than trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else.
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's definitely a lot of different factors, and I'm going to try to simplify and hit on a few of them. Right. So one of them is that we have to remember that we are attached to
Mhm.
our history. Right. So modern day
Yeah.
humans have been around since 300 for 300,000 years, and
Mhm.
we also existed before then as well. But if we just focus on those 300,000 years, there's been a lot of things around beliefs and behaviors.
Right.
And when we go far, far back in history, right, you really people were kind of forced to conform in order to be a part of the group. Because at that time, it was a life or death, right? If you got kicked out of, the tribe, so to speak, during, back in like more of the prehistoric kind of times, who's hunting for you? Who's gathering? You couldn't be by yourself, right? So it really truly was a life or death. So that caused people to have this habit, right? And this way of thinking of conform, strip yourself of who you authentically are so you can fit into the group, because not being included could be detrimental, right? So that's like the historic pieces of it. But even in present day, because we're attached to our history, right? There's still a lot of people who struggle to understand that humans truly are not blank slates. I say in my book, and I also say often all the time, that we have to remember that humans, once we come, Earthside, you are a whole person meant to go on a self-discovery journey to figure out who you already are. Right. And so like we figure out our favorite foods by tasting and trying different foods. And it's like, that would have been your favorite food regardless, but you had to have that experience, right, of trying foods to figure it out. So we're unique individuals, but because people grew up in environments where they were stripped of themselves, and they were also surrounded by what we call learned helplessness in the field of psychology. And I have a whole chapter on learned helplessness in my book, because it's so important to understand that a lot of us had it modeled to us from a young age that you're 100%. Incapable. Nothing you can do to change your circumstances. And then that becomes your kind of like your go-to mentality, even though we all started life feeling super invincible. I mean, think so much so that you have to follow toddlers around because they would get into danger, right? There's no sense of I'm incapable when we first come into the world.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You really touch on some points that I want to expand on, and you talked a little bit about your book, and we're going to really dive into it. And the book is Bold, Black, and Becoming: A Psychology Guide to Heal and Thrive. And again, it's so beautifully done. But I have noticed, specifically, I am a minority. I'm a woman of color, and I've been doing some research for a podcast episode on imposter syndrome. It's been something that when I was part of, and I still am, but when I did a lot of mentoring and coaching at the university level for young women, it was something that maybe it was the first time they heard what imposter syndrome was, but it is more prevalent for a minority to suffer from imposter syndrome. And again, 70% of the population is suffering from imposter syndrome. But the thing that I really resonate with is that we have to have individuals who model for us that confidence.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely need that. Also, just normalizing some elements of imposter syndrome, because feeling and experiencing self-doubt when doing something new or different is almost inevitable, right? As long as you have still a strong conscience, which of course we want to have, right? And self-awareness. But we're gonna have self-doubt, right? And I teach often about emotions, just understanding that they're like notes from your brain, but they're not foolproof, right? We're not supposed to just take them at face value. We're supposed to be curious about them. And going back to the quote of mine that you shared, of like, we're learning to manage ourselves. So we want to say, what is self-doubt communicating to me? And if it's something new that you're doing, usually those feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome is just kind of meant to be a check-in. Like, hey, have I prepared? Is there more information I need to gather? It's not a sign that you're doing something wrong necessarily. It's just kind of meant to be like a stop sign.
Okay.
Check in, figure out what it is, if anything different that I need to do in terms of information gathering or planning or whatever. Proceed, right? Because we learn through trial and error, we learn through attempts, we learn through mistakes. So the way that you master skills is through practice. But imposter syndrome is to some degree, as long as it's not to a part of like it's becoming like a debilitating, then that's, more of the extreme. But a bit of self-doubt and feeling like an imposter from time to time, research has actually shown that when that's like honed and understood and responded to well, it keeps a person from getting a really egotistical big head. And that a person that knows how to work with embrace that actually tends at what they're doing because they care to keep learning, right? They don't get to this point of I know everything and no one can tell me anything, which that's never good, right? So a little bit of it and we're knowing to work with it is not a bad thing.
Now, many individuals, when they start to discover or unpack, right, that a lot of these behaviors and thoughts, and again, these thoughts that drive the feelings, right, the inadequate feelings and the way that we're showing up, when they start to discover, they enter into cognitive dissonance. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And for the listeners, maybe they've never heard the phrase. Tell us a little bit more.
Just defining cognitive dissonance. Yeah. So cognitive dissonance is, I like to kind of describe it in this easy way of when we experience it, it's kind of like feeling like your brain's getting shook up a little because maybe you have certain beliefs or ideas about yourself, others, the world, whatever it may be. And then you're presented information or evidence that challenges that belief in one way or another. And the thing about cognitive dissonance is that we all experience it and we'll experience it endless amount of times throughout our life. But if we don't know what it is and we don't know how to appropriately respond to it, it can lead to really bad things.
Yes. I've been there, by the way.
Yeah, me too. Right. This is why education on how our brains work is imperative for all of us. Because how can you manage yourself well when you don't understand your experiences, right? You're more likely to be irrational, make mistakes, especially the same mistakes over and over again, things like that. So cognitive dissonance, when we experience it, there are one of three things that should be our response. And it depends on the specific circumstances. So I talk about this in the book too. And I'm like, if you're always doing one of them, never the other two, something's wrong. Like that's not, okay. That means that you are not having a healthy response because you want to either gather more information to see if that leads to the cognitive dissonance kind of relieving itself. So that's one thing that we might need to do. You might need to just take in that information. Maybe it's like, wow, these are up-to-date facts, new research, new understanding, and I need to take that in, right? And so then you adopt and adapt that belief because something credible and factual was presented to you, right? Or you see if there is, so we have the get more information, we have the adopt what it is, or reject, right? So then rejecting is just like maybe somebody's trying to present something to you and you find out that it's faulty information or something not right about it, and you're able to just keep your beliefs as they were. But if you're only doing one of the three every time your beliefs are challenged, then you're stagnant. You're going to be stagnant in your growth. You're going to make a lot of the same mistakes, and you're self-sabotaging your own life without realizing it. And this is why education about these things is so important.
Well, as you're speaking, and I know that this has been something that has happened with a lot of my clients. And again, I am not a therapist, but I am certified in cognitive behavioral techniques. And I did it to help me mostly because I am my best client. But a lot of us tend to be in that rejection phase because that means that we have to change the beliefs that maybe people that we care about created for us.
Yeah, a lot of people grew up in environments where opinions were presented to them as fact, and now they struggle to tell the difference. I often have to, and just help people understand that, like, especially on my professional social medias where I share knowledge and information and scientific research and facts, I come across people where I have to explain to them, like, this is not my opinion. This is factual information that has been, time and time again validated through brain imaging, research, all these different things. And it kind of confuses people. And I can see that dissonance. They're just like, what? But when you grow up in an environment where you're not allowed to be the curious little scientist that you started life as, because we all started. Right. All of us come into the world super open-minded, want to learn, want to grow. But if it's unsafe to ask questions in your home,
Yeah.
If it leads to some kind of abuse or neglect or rejection, then it takes you from being your natural state as a human being of being curious and open-minded to being very closed-minded.
Mm.
And a lot of times people don't realize that strong cognitive dissonance feeling, like you said, they're also afraid of like being kicked out of the tribe, like what we were
Yeah.
talking about
Not
earlier. Like, oh my
belonging.
gosh, I'm not going along with my family anymore. Are they
Mhm.
going to reject me if I no longer believe in what I was taught, whether it be religion or something else? And people are afraid for the
Mhm.
change, right? Because they want to still be included in the
Right. Right.
group. Hmm.
Oh,
But it can hold us back.
as I'm listening to you, I know that that ability, right, to be able to reject, and like I mentioned, there's clients that rejected, and there was, this is one of my favorite conversations when, because by the way, I used to do this a lot, and I fall back into the
Same,
trap of saying it, right? But I'll
same.
say,
We've
you
all
hurt
been
my
there or
feelings.
still there.
You hurt my
Hmm.
feelings. What you said hurt me. But in reality, it really is when we begin to heal the relationship within us, then we can start to see that it's not somebody else that is doing the
Yes,
thing.
yes,
It is how
yes.
we are interpreting it and how
Absolutely.
we are then processing and subsequently from our thoughts, our actions come to pass, and then our feelings, or vice versa, rather.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But that's really something that it took me a long time to really process. And like I said, I fall back into these things. It's with my husband,
Hmm.
I can't believe he did that. And he's such a jerk or whatever, right? And he made me feel terrible for whatever, fill in the blank. And yet
Hmm.
it's how I'm interpreting. And then I go back to, where
Yes.
did I come from? Where did that belief come from? How come I feel neglected as a wife if I'm not getting all the attention, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Just understanding how we've been
Mhm.
conditioned because
Yeah.
all of us as humans can be irrational. I mean, that's an
Mhm.
inevitable experience. So what we want to learn how to do is have discernment to determine when we are being
Mhm.
and have people around us that aren't just yes men, right? People who truly are nurturing our
Mhm.
growth and healing, which
Right.
requires honesty and loving reflection and saying like, hey, here's my experience of you at times. And if we're willing to stand in front of
Mhm.
that door when they present it, right? Of like, hey, I don't know if you notice that you do this. We all have biases and
Yeah.
blind spots. We need each other, right? To be mirrors. So of course you have to make sure whoever's holding up the mirror is doing their own work, right? And
Yeah.
then having
No,
enough
absolutely.
self-awareness. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important because otherwise they might be projecting their stuff in your mirror right now. It's confusing, right?
Yes.
But if the person is really doing their work too, and they're like, I've noticed this pattern, I want to bring it to you, you then are presented like with this door. I use this visual a lot. And then it's up
Mhm.
to you to decide if you're going to walk through it. On the other side is the next version of you.
Mhm.
If you are willing to receive that, take
Mhm.
accountability for that, and actively work on correcting it, which of course takes time to practice, though you alter the way that your brain reacts, your own brain chemistry, and it gets
Mhm.
easier. But you have to be like, yeah, I see it. And it's going to make you feel
Mhm.
crappy, right?
Yeah.
But those emotions exist because those negative emotions are meant to fuel our
Mhm.
change if we understand
If
that they
we
make us feel
understand.
uncomfortable, right? Like
Mhm.
you're supposed to feel uncomfortable so that you go, oh, I don't like that I do that,
Yeah.
right? So that you're then motivated to start changing it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I have been doing some work on, because I'm reading the book Dose on
Mhm.
dopamine,
Yes.
oxytocin, serotonin, and I forgot the last one because I'm not done with the book. But I wanted to talk a little bit more on the podcast about that dopamine. And one of the things that
Mhm.
I realized that it has such power because with the motivation that we get from that hit of dopamine, right, to do the
Mhm.
whatever behavior, there's also that discomfort that comes with it as
Yes.
well. And
Mhm.
I think for me, one of the biggest lessons in regulating my emotions was to know that I can feel one thing and the other at the same time. That
Yes.
sadness
Mhm.
and happiness can
Mhm.
can coexist at the same
Absolutely.
time. And a lot of times we feel, why am I feeling this way? No, I cannot feel that. Go away my emotion, right? And that's how we kind of get stuck in a pattern.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so important from an early age for us all to be allowed to experience our emotions. But so many people were not. Because how do you get better at regulation if you're not given opportunities to practice? We do this in so many ways. And one of the most common ways that we see it just in our society, and I would say just in the world as a whole, is this perpetual like generational trauma, because that's what it is, of saying don't cry when people are crying. That is one of the key ways that we see it, right? This rejection of negative emotion, or not even, because we can cry to any emotion,
right?
Any big emotion. Crying is just about release. Just about release. That's why if you won $50 million, you're gonna cry.
You're gonna cry, right?
And you got devastating news, you would cry. It's just that it's like it's how sneezing is, or coughing, or eating when hungry.
It's a physical reaction.
Yes. And we're supposed to honor it. Notice, honor, release. But so many of us have been conditioned to say, oh, somebody's having emotion. Stop that. And the problem is then we're teaching people to suppress. And now we have so much research and evidence of that chronic emotional suppression leads to not only mental health disorders, but even physical health disorders, including dementia has even been associated and correlated with it, right? If you chronically suppress over many, many years, it's a toxin to our bodies.
Absolutely.
But we're still recovering from this like belief that our emotions are bad, unless you're happy. Everyone's fine if you're happy.
Everything's fine. Nothing is wrong. Everything is happening and it's good. And I think that that's really where, no matter what it is, I think that we do that to each other and in our families. And
we don't even understand.
And
what
we don't understand that
it's innocent. The people doing it. I used to do it myself as well before I realized what the true risk and cost of doing that to humans is. I don't think anyone's doing it out of a place of being malicious or lacking empathy. They're just doing it out of the conditioning.
Yeah, it's
They're
the
like,
conditioning.
Well, people
of the
say
world.
don't cry to me, so I guess I say it to you. And it's like, no, people need to cry. It's a normal thing. And it does, speaking of all those happy brain chemicals you mentioned, it does wonderful things for the brain when we cry. It's you're giving your body what it needs.
It's very healing, and it's it's such a great emotion to be able to justify. But I think that in addition to living in a world in which, we've been conditioned that, to categorize emotions as good or bad and put them in different buckets, right? Yep. And when we feel the bucket that's supposed to be quote unquote bad, then we kind of beat ourselves up as opposed to really understand, okay, this is a physical emotion to this thought. This is my response. And once we allow ourselves to really be able to feel that emotion, we can explore it. We can notice, what happens when we think or begin to feel that, and really be able to decide whether or not this is something that we want to continue to bring to ourselves. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this is why you use positive, neutral, and negative, because there is no such thing as bad emotions.
Right.
You just have positive emotions, more like kind of neutral, more kind of like, I guess, linear kind of experience of an emotion, like being content, right? You're not feeling very high or very low. So that's more like a neutral. And then you have negative emotions, which does not mean bad, just means the opposite of positive, right? So like, oh, I'm happy, or I'm maybe sad, or, I'm elated, or I'm fearful. So helping people understand that all of these emotions are important. They're, like you said, communicating things about our experiences. Our job is to learn and become deeply acquainted and intimate with them, aka emotional intelligence, so that we can learn how to navigate them, aka emotional regulation, right? Because without that, we're going to have a very challenging time doing this human experience, considering that you're always in an emotional state. You cannot escape something that is constant, right? You can only learn how to embrace and manage and work with it.
Well, I know, one of the biggest things for me is really being able to learn how to regulate emotions and really, and again, not perfect at it. And
no one is.
And it depends on on what am I doing? If I'm sleeping well, if I am eating
Yeah.
well, then that definitely also has an impact with how I am going to have cognitive appraisal of something, or how am I going to be able to remind myself to breathe deeply when, the things that set me off or are there, and that's things that we don't teach in schools. I
Which
went
is so sad.
which is so sad. I went and I got certified. I went as I was going through my certification. When I went through yoga and mindfulness certification, I got certified as a social emotional learning facilitator for schools, because this
Oh,
is
great.
programming.
So needed.
Yeah, and it's programming that, well, things of course have changed now. But initially, there was a lot of federal funding set aside in schools to be able to bring in this type of programming,
Love
really
it.
emotional regulation, be able to teach that social emotional learning about belonging, about being able to, know that it's not your neighbor bothering you. It's and how to, act in certain situations. Now, obviously, things have changed in schools, and we're in an era in which things, who knows where we're going to end up, right? But
I hope
I
we end
think
up
that this
where
is,
this is all the
yeah,
time in every school, because that's
and
what
this
we
is the
need.
work. This is the
Mm-hmm.
work. And I think for me, in working with women, most of my clients are entrepreneurs. Most of them want to have a podcast, and I usher them through the process of creating a podcast that helps their business. But the confidence comes from them knowing that they've learned a lesson that they can take with them as in their toolbox, but then they can
Yes.
pass on to somebody else.
Yes.
Because it
Yeah. And
stopped,
that's
and I've heard this from many people that I interview or clients. They'll say it stops with me.
yes. Yes. Yeah. And that's also define what we're actually here to
Mhm.
do
Yeah,
as humans, right?
yeah.
Humaning well together means that we learn the skills and the knowledge to help us know how to navigate
Mhm.
our own experiences, but also understanding that we're part
Yeah.
of a collective, supposed to be
Mm.
pouring into and supporting one another in a balanced way, right?
Yeah.
Right. Understanding that you are a person with needs, but also other people are as
Mhm.
well, and being respectful of one another and our uniqueness and our diversity, and holding the weight of big emotions together. I say in my book too that we're all designed to be so emotional because we're supposed to be holding the weight of these emotions together,
Mm.
right? You're not supposed to regulate in isolation. Sure,
Right.
some experiences you'll be able to regulate your emotions on your own, but for
Mhm.
bigger things, and even maybe medium or small, you just might want company, but it's about the quality of that company.
Right.
And emotional intelligence is what makes it safest, and
Mhm.
empathy, safest for us to connect and human well together.
Mhm.
And we're at a unfortunately still at a pretty a shortage of that skill having been taught. So we have a lot of adults that are walking around with their mental and emotional age still being that of a child, right?
Mhm.
Right, because our mental and emotional age is a product of experiences,
Mhm.
how well, how well we were taught things, how well we were
Yeah.
nurtured and loved, all of that. Whereas your biological age, you just
Right.
sit here and you're getting
Mhm.
older. You don't have to do anything. So it's about understanding that the way that the world starts looking better for all of us is that we have to embrace our humanity. The
Mhm.
world is what it is right now because people have been denying it.
That's
And
right.
when do we wake up and realize we're all connected in our humanness,
Mm.
considering the fact that we all have the same structures and parts to our brain and even the same hormones, just at
Yeah,
varying,
at varying
levels.
levels and where
When
we
I tell
are.
people, how many people have been shocked when I'm like, you do know all humans have testosterone. They're like, what? And it's like, yeah. Quick,
Yeah.
yeah. Like when you're being told things that are inaccurate scientifically, and
Mhm.
it's just false information spread all the time, and so people really don't know truth from somebody's guesses
Right.
of what truth might be. But no, we're all got the same parts to our brain that make us emotional, and so we
Yeah.
all need to be taught these things.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about when we are in this place of emotional, and maybe we really are going down the spiral, right?
Yeah.
Of shoulda,
Hmm.
woulda, coulda, or
Yes.
we go back to, I think I have some go-tos for myself, and I want to beat myself up, right? I have my go-tos, and how do we, right, change maybe these thoughts that are I call them the frenemy thoughts, right? Because
Yeah.
they're really our enemies, but they live with us and we can't get rid of them. Even when we do some of the work and all the work, it's always going to be part of us, but we're turning down the volume on those thoughts.
Yes.
But what are some other practical things that individuals can do when they notice that they're going down the rabbit hole of these thoughts?
Yes. So the first thing is to normalize thoughts that you're having. That I always start there with everybody. So humans have between 12,000, 60,000 thoughts a day.
It's a lot.
And it's a lot, and even more possibly, depending on, individual factors. But it's estimated between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts.
Wow.
And it's a lot of thoughts in 24 hours, right? Yeah. And then in addition to that, you're always in some kind of emotional state. And so since the brain is an emotional organ and a thinking machine, just like any kind of machine, it can have glitches, right? Yeah. It's not going to always work perfectly. And so learning about intrusive thoughts and irrational thoughts helps us understand that, like, oh, that's just that glitch of the mind, right?
That's
So
right.
by us having a more regulated response when it happens, that sets us up to be in a better place, right? To respond to the experience. A lot of times we're accidentally adding to our distress because we're thinking, what's wrong with, why am I thinking like this?
What's wrong with me? Oh, that's the go-to.
That what's wrong with me thing, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about normalizing negative emotion, right? Because if you have humans thinking that their human experiences, it means that they're crazy. It already sets them up for some heightened distress that's so unnecessary. It's like, you're not crazy. No one is, right? We're all having these human experiences, just to different, maybe amounts, and our skill set to managing them are in different places, but everyone has intrusive thoughts. Everyone has anxious thoughts. And if they tell you otherwise, they're lying to you.
They're lying because they're living in a world that doesn't exist.
Is really low. It's like the person who says they're not angry, but they're literally screaming at the top of their lungs. It's like that person's self-awareness and understanding of their experiences, they're struggling with that. So that's why they might tell you, I don't have intrusive thoughts. It's like, the brain, there is no brain that's not giving intrusive thoughts, at least from time to time. So the normalizing helps because you go, oh, here I was thinking something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
And all I really was needing was more knowledge about these experiences and skills to combat it. When it comes to what if questions, I always teach my clients, what if is a question. Answer it. Answer the question. Because if you keep hitting yourself, what if this, what if this, what if this? It causes you to focus on feelings of helplessness instead of being more what we call response focused, right?
Yeah.
And being response focused to say, okay, if this happened, what would be in my control? How can I respond? How can I meet my emotional needs and move through all of that over time? So answering what ifs is great. Labeling intrusive thoughts and irrational thoughts for what they are is extremely important and great. And also not accidentally gaslighting yourself. People do that a lot too. They're like, I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And people say that when they actually do, right? You do. You're like, oh, I know why I had this intrusive thought that this new person wasn't going to like me. I dealt with a lot of bullying. It's like, don't gaslight yourself. You went through that. Say like, hey, that's coming from a fear of rejection because I've been hurt in the past. Validating your experiences in that way really helps you move through and regulate as well. But again, we need each other too. So
we surely do. We surely do. I was listening to you and I remember an instance in which really I wasn't sleeping well and a lot of things were going on and it was actually about this time of year, 5 years ago. And I knew that I needed to change my circumstances, but my mind was making all kinds of really like the fear was so palpable. And I was hanging on, I'll share, I was hanging on to my job with this relentlessness, even though I wanted to do something else, even though I wanted to leave, even though I knew, it was time to go, but the safety of that. And then I had to, okay, well, what if I left? What would I do? Okay, what if I do that and it doesn't work? What if? And at the bottom of it, I found that I was, and by the way, never been, but I was afraid of being homeless. And that we would end up homeless in the streets and nobody to help us.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has the possibility but
Yeah.
cannot, right? And when we label the emotions, then we're able to say, okay, let me take your hand, little Julie, to where you're feeling
Yes,
and
yes,
walk
right. And
me
give little
through
Julie the
that and
comfort too.
comfort. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not, it's very understandable why you would have
Mhm.
that fear, right?
Yeah.
But then once you kind of, because I'm hearing that you met yourself with curiosity instead of the judgment, and that's another important thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Being curious, like, what is this actually about? Let me allow my mind to go through and go there because
Mhm.
clearly something's under the surface. And when I'm doing it in my mind and in a productive way, there's no risk really, right? It's
Yeah.
you haven't taken any
That's right.
steps, you haven't done anything, but
Mhm.
you're allowing yourself to be in thought, but in a
Yeah.
productive way. And
Mhm.
so you allowed yourself to go through that, and then you were able to hug that part of yourself and say,
Mhm.
of course we're, anxious about that, but that's also not the reality of what's happening in this moment. And
Mhm.
there would be a lot of steps and stages probably, like, and there would be warning signs along the
Yeah.
way if that were, to happen. So reminding yourself, oh, I have a savings, or here's something that I could do as well if I was worried about finances. Maybe I have to take a job for a
Right.
little bit that I wouldn't love, but it's bringing in
Mhm.
money and keeping
That's
my
right.
roof over my head.
Mhm.
Reminding yourself of what's in your control to
Yeah.
respond to
Yeah.
those what ifs to regulate.
Oh, I'm
Mhm.
loving this. And the other piece of it that I think that I started to do a lot of the work, and this is when I had to bring, and I've been to therapy and been to coaching, but this is when I really needed the help of other people, because when I started to notice that these irrational thoughts, or these thoughts that weren't serving me, my little friend of me thoughts, and then they were creating this wealth of emotions that I
Mhm.
just felt bombarded by. I realized that I had to get myself into an automation of doing the thing, right? Okay, now I
Yeah.
launched a business. Here I am. Okay, I don't have time to do that. And as a high achiever, by the way, I will go without, giving myself a break. And one of the things that I started to notice it is that I became, and I wonder if it's related in my brain, it might be, but I believe that the more that I was suppressing emotions, thoughts, that I wasn't really even looking at them, that trauma, right, started to
Mhm.
manifest itself in other ways. For
Yeah.
instance, when I'm in the car with my husband and I am a wreck
Mhm.
because and again, who knows, where that comes from, but still, right? When I'm dealing with my emotions, when I'm really questioning, hey, why are you feeling that? Where's that coming from? Let's regulate our emotions a little better. Let's do some mindfulness. Let's talk about the emotions, validate them. And then I'm better in the car.
Yeah, and just giving yourself time to move
Yeah.
through it too. A lot because of all the shutting down and suppressing that people have experienced. They have unrealistic expectations sometimes about the amount of time it truly takes, depending on the situation,
Mhm.
to move through what you're
Yeah.
feeling, and
Yeah.
just keep meeting your needs instead of trying to rush yourself through, because you'll get there a
Mhm.
lot quicker if you are just focusing on meeting your needs.
Yeah.
And we got to remember that we're always trying to approximate what it is that we're feeling. We're doing the
Mhm.
best we can with the language we've created so far, right? And the level of understanding that we have so far
Mhm.
about
So far.
ourselves,
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
humans, about all of that. So it really is approximation. So being curious allows for you to do your very best to analyze all the
Mhm.
possible things that could be contributing. But the good news is it doesn't have to be this like perfect thing or perfect science. The
Right.
more curious you are about yourself, your experiences, the more that you are vulnerable with other safe people in your life where you can process and explore, the more you will be able to deepen your understanding of
Mhm.
yourself. And it doesn't have to be perfect because that's impossible, but you're trying to just make progress, right? I always
Mhm.
say practice makes progress. So you
Right.
learn more about yourself along the way, the more intimate of a relationship you
Mhm.
foster with yourself.
Yeah, so beautiful. I want to turn a little bit to your book.
Yeah.
And so many different things that I have in mind. In the first one, the title of your book is Bold, Black, and Becoming. and you're discussing the psychology guide to heal and thrive. Yet, as we've been mentioning, right, we need to normalize that we all go through this.
Yes.
We all have the same emotions. However, your book is specifically for Black people and becoming. And
it is, and it isn't.
There's a healing that needs to be, especially in a community that sometimes has been really kept, and had so many hardships, so many difficulties. And even now, in cases, it's not being even acknowledged that there are barriers.
Yes. There's so many barriers. So my vision for my book and the title and all the things. So where do I start? So yes, I wanted
so much,
to,
right? I told you it was a lot.
I wanted to, so with my books, we have the copy here. So this is what it looks like for the people watching.
And we'll put it in the show notes as well.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Yeah. So I did want to intentionally fill a gap in the field in terms of mental health resources. And so there is a shortage of mental health books that take into consideration the lived experiences of Black people and people of color.
Yeah.
So I saw an opportunity to write a book that had representation, and we know through research and just when you think about it critically, representation is a great way to fight stigma, right?
Absolutely.
If you were taught that, mental health is just for white people, and you see a Black mental health doctor that wrote a mental health book that has representation for your lived experiences, that causes a lot of cognitive dissonance,
right,
and increases the likelihood of you actually learning about your beautiful organ that houses your very essence, which is your brain. So I wanted to tackle a problem, right? We have mental health conditions unfortunately, the statistics are on the rise within the Black community, but seeking help is still not on the rise. And there are, of course, racial, systemic barriers and, healthcare inequalities that contribute to that. Stigma is a big part of it too. It has plagued our cultures. I know as a Caribbean woman myself, right? We hear often things like, oh, mental health. People don't really say it to me anymore directly since I'm a psychologist. But growing up, I heard those things, right? And so I want to help more Black and brown people understand that, like, this is for everyone.
Yeah.
But I intentionally also made the first page of my book a special message to my non-Black readers. And that was a very intentional decision on my part, because I wanted people to understand what we were talking about earlier, of that I'm a firm believer that you can tackle multiple problems with one thing. So since I know that it is impossible to technically write a mental health book that doesn't apply to all humans, because every mental health piece of knowledge, every skill I talk about in the book, every part about the brain still applies to all of us. And so by having that first page be a special message to my non-Black readers, it was a clear invitation of like, hey, if you don't identify as Black, you can still and will still benefit from the mental health knowledge in this book. And you get an extra bonus of increasing your social awareness of people who are having different lived experiences than you. And that helps you increase your empathy for others who have identities that you don't hold, because I talk about often that if any group of human beings is experiencing trauma, causing them that trauma, other humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to care about each other. We have to be invested in how am I affecting my same identity that don't have the same identities as me, or just individual to individual in general, because we're all beautifully unique and diverse in so many ways. So I've been so excited seeing my readers be of all different racial identities, gender identities, and everything. So it's been what I hoped it would be. I'm helping the Black community, and I'm also helping humanity. Which
you're
I'm
building bridges, and I think that is so needed again. And I love that you use the word empathy, because we sometimes when we want to help somebody, we're doing it from a sympathetic part.
Yes.
And rather than that empathy. And there's a big difference in how we relate to someone, and how the assistance, support, or presence that we give someone will then impact that person, if we're coming from empathy or from sympathy.
Yes. Yeah. And I love that you said the building bridge. I'm like, exactly, exactly. I want people to know that there are, one, it is imperative that we be learning about each other. Two, that diversity is inevitable down to the
Mhm.
individual, right? And diversity's never been the problem. How
No.
we've treated each other because of it is.
That's right.
And we start repairing that by educating ourselves and bridging, right? And finding the appropriate and ways to do that, right?
Mhm.
And so like reading books and other things like that allows for that, and it helps us also see that we're connected in our
Mhm.
humanity, right? And that's
Right.
one of my favorite things about my book as well, that you're going to have about 4% of the book does go over like the some common lived experiences of Black
Mhm.
people and how that's impacted. And then the other 96% is the pieces of it that's the self-help book, right?
Right.
That here's the mental health tools, the knowledge that applies to all humans. But you're able to see like, wow, we're connected in our humanity, even though we're having these different lived
Mhm.
experiences that are affecting our mental health outcomes. And it allows for you to make sure that you're on the right side of history, that you are caring for your own mental health and being
Mhm.
aware of how people's unique experiences are affecting their mental health as well, so that you can be supportive of others too and bridge that
Mm.
gap. So we can human well together. Full
Yeah,
circle.
we can human well together. Now, I would imagine because I did it with my book as I was going over some of these concepts, you're also sharing your personal experiences.
I am throughout the book.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There are moments
How
throughout.
easy or hard or what was your experience with opening up in that way?
Love that question, Julie, because after the book was, I think like maybe the week after it was officially like published
Mhm.
and available everywhere online, I said to my husband, I said, like anybody in the world could know about my trauma. Like it hit me and I
Yeah.
realized like anyone who reads the book would be able to know bits and pieces of my
Mhm.
story,
Yeah.
because it's not the focus of the book, of course, but I do use personal examples throughout the book.
Mhm.
And I hadn't really like I knew it was in the book, of course I wrote it, but it hits different once
Mhm.
it's like published. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh no, like really anyone. But then,
Anyone.
yeah, but then I was like, I actually love that I'm able to be
Mhm.
safely vulnerable with the world and help people see my
Right.
humanity as well. I think a lot of times because people get wrapped up in all of these stereotypes around like the titles we hold and things
Mhm.
like that, that we forget that we all have had hardships
Yep.
and we all have had triumphs as well.
Mhm.
And so I was like, no, I'm so glad that people are going to see that. Yes, I'm a doctor, but I also am just as human as you are.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
has been something that I have received a lot of positive feedback about too, from people who have read
Mhm.
my book. If they're like, I love that I get to know you throughout the book while also learning so much about my own
Mm.
humanity and how you utilize this stuff. Because literally everything in my book I
Yeah.
use all the time with myself, with my clients,
Mhm.
and I'm constantly seeking more knowledge and information about how to work with the brain and my human experiences. And I go to therapy
Mhm.
myself, right? And for my own personal therapy. But yeah, it was in the beginning. When it hit me, it was after it was published.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I guess it just made it more real. But I am grateful to be able to share
Mhm.
bits of my life in my book as
Yeah.
well.
And there's so much power in the story and
Yes.
in our stories. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we as humans can create the empathy for each other by really
Yes.
being able to share this is my lived experience.
Yes.
And when I wrote my book, the editor came back and said, you need to describe that a little more. I'm like, what do you mean? I put it out there already. And I had to do a lot of the work. And at the end,
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily feel afraid of the world
Mm-hmm.
seeing it. But when the book actually released and my sisters were going to read it, I
Mm-hmm.
thought, oh, because even in the same household, my experiences, I'd never lived in a house where my mom was a single mom and I was the youngest. I was the oldest. So my experience, my lens,
Mhm.
it's all
Yes, different.
totally
Mhm,
different. And
mhm.
and how I internalize and therefore went about my life is much different than them. And it's not, a dig on anybody. It's just
No.
this is what it is. This is what
It's
happened.
just a reminder that we all are experiencing life through our own lens. And empathy is that bridge, right? Helping us truly put ourselves in each other's shoes to feel with that person. And that's why empathy is superior always to sympathy, right? Because I'm feeling with you when I empathize, and I do less harm when I nurture the skill of empathy, right? And I'm able to understand my stuff from your stuff, but bridge and meet you where you're at. So see, even being I love that you gave that example, like even being and growing up in the same home, but because of birth order and because of just you being a unique individual in the world, it still is going to give you a unique lived experience, right? So that's even why I say like there are some examples of common lived experiences for Black people in my book to remind people that like nobody's experiencing exactly the same thing.
That's right.
Like that's impossible. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I could talk to you all day. This is always a topic that is so fascinating to me. I know that we went in a lot of different directions, but the directions that I'm confident are going to really be able to perhaps give that aha moment to the listeners, and that they will know that we're here, we're as friends. We want to share what we have found and the things that work, and really, how it works for them. Now, here's a tangible, because most of our listeners in the podcast are multitasking, and perhaps, they wanted to write something down, or they want to kind of explore that for themselves. And I always like to say a consumer of knowledge is great, an implementer is better. So, what would be one takeaway from everything that we talked about, and something that the listener can go in and maybe put into practice in their own life in the coming weeks?
I would say that a good takeaway is to learn to be more curious about your human experiences and less judgmental of them.
Yeah.
So that you can be kinder to yourself throughout your own growth and healing journey, while also learning to hold yourself accountable, because that's the magic recipe. It's the holding myself accountable, also giving myself grace for my humanity.
Yeah. Well, you have been incredibly graceful, and I am so thankful that we connected. I'm so thankful that you're part of my Confident You community now. And certainly, we're here to support you. I can't wait for the listeners to go and check out the book and really connect with you on social media. I know
Please do.
social media, this is, and you are doing a great deal of public service by putting the content in social media that you are. I think that this is the first time that a lot of people may encounter this and can help them, like, oh, wait a minute, right? So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
And is Dr. Berry psychologist, I believe, is your handle?
Yeah, TikTok is my main social media, but I am on YouTube, Facebook, all of them with my professional accounts. For people who get the book, my website and all of my social handles are on the back under my author photo. So if you have a copy of the book, you'll be able to find me. But TikTok is the main place as of now, and then YouTube is going to be the next one. So definitely follow me on there, and I love hearing from my readers. So please, people, feel free to reach out. And again, regardless of your racial identity, gender identity, or anything else, you only have to identify as human to truly benefit from the knowledge in my book. So enjoy, and I love hearing how it's helping people on their healing and growth journeys.
And friends, go and friend her, follow her, Dr. Berry, but more importantly, go and slide into her DMs and say, I love this. And if you're practicing that curiosity, we would both love to see it or hear it. So tag us in your posts that you're doing it, so that we can cheer you on. The journey is not a lonely one. It's in it. We're in it all together, and it much better when we can go hand in hand. So thank you, Dr. Berry, for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Julie, for your time. This was wonderful. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, you know what to do. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Casa de Confidence. We thank you for listening, and if you want more, go to CasaDeConfidencePod.com. Check Julie out on her socials as Julie DeLucca-Collins. And you can also check out her website at GoConfidentlyCoaching.com. Have a great week, and don't forget, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.
Hi, everybody. I know that sometimes we get very lonely in this entrepreneur journey, and I want to invite you to join us into our limited time only Purposeful You Mastermind. For many of us entrepreneurs, we believe that we can do it all, but the reality is that doing it alone only creates a lot of overwhelm. So join us at the Purposeful You Mastermind. You can find out more information by going to bit.ly/Julie's Mastermind. This is going to be the place where you are able to then unlock your full potential and achieve long-term success for your business. Push you behind your current limits, expand your connections, discover new ideas, and implement them with confidence. You're going to get the support in all aspects and transforming you to the six-figure business you've been looking for. Pause and get off the hamster wheel if you've been spinning around. This is a time where you can get that support from like-minded entrepreneurs that are here to join you in your journey. Together, we can challenge the assumptions and land the speaking engagements and opportunities we want to grow our business and make an impact in the lives of people. See you then. Remember, you can find the mastermind at bit.ly, Julie's Mastermind.